backwards. I mean, what we would say in English is that, he's in a very deep hole and he's still digging and he's going on digging. And for example, although he has sort of said, well, maybe we'll consider a ceasefire and come up with one or two minor proposals, there's no evidence at all at the moment that Russia is serious about a ceasefire. And he is just stringing the Americans or Trump's administration along, saying, well, maybe yes, but meaning no in terms of his reaction and his activity.
You just mentioned that Vladimir Putin still continues his policy. He cannot reverse it. Moreover, recently he said that Russian army would be able to finish off the Ukrainian army. However, Russian army couldn't do this throughout these 3 years of full-scale war. Don't you think that Putin is overplaying his hand by promising achieving such maximalist goals, but he doesn't have any ability to capture the whole army, finish off Ukrainians?
Well, it's very hard to imagine after 3 years of conflict that the Ukrainian military, which has been remarkable in its performance, is going to, as it were, fold its cards and give up. I just don't believe that. I think there is a worry, though, on the Ukrainian side, which is the threat that Trump may start withdrawing support. And one saw the impact of that when cooperation was briefly ceased and the Russians moved to take back some of the Kursk, the salient. So I think what's important from Kyiv and Ukraine's point of view is that there is sustained military support. The American element is very important. Okay, Trump has threatened maybe to stop that, but so far that hasn't happened. And what we need to know is what Trump will do if Putin refuses to move in the direction of a ceasefire. I mean, the only bit that he's proposed is a ceasefire in the Black Sea, where the Ukrainian naval capability, this extraordinary use of new technology, has pretty much driven the Russian Navy out or to the far side of the Black Sea back to their bases. And it's a remarkable naval achievement.
Also, in your article for The Telegraph, you noted that Trump has two options to put pressure on Vladimir Putin to provide Ukraine with military support or also to impose sanctions against Russia. However, you just said in your interview that neither option will deliver a result which will match Trump's impatience to achieve a quick ceasefire. Does this mean that even if Trump uses all means of pressure on Putin, it will be not enough to actually end the war?
Well, the answer is there's so much uncertainty about Trump's reaction, what he'll do next. I thought it's very, very hard to predict that. I mean, the reason I wrote that article, which I hope is widely read, particularly read in Washington, is to try to get across the point that there's there's a real danger in doing a rapid ceasefire deal because Russia is in a deteriorating position. And actually, the longer the war, in my opinion, goes on, the more that Putin plays into Ukraine's hands, as long as support for Ukraine is sustained. And I think there's a new important element in this is a new German Chancellor, Merz, and a possible changing attitude on the part of Germany, where Merz will be much more willing to arm and to support the Ukrainian military. That won't replicate what the Americans do, but it could make a significant difference. So the important thing here is that Ukraine really does, in my opinion, need to hang on and to push Russia to the point where these stresses begin to show results. The other issue, which is, I think, vitally important, and we see the effects of this already, is Trump's policies are reducing the price of energy, oil and gas in particular, and this has a very detrimental effect on the Russian economy. And there is a further point which I made in that article about what I would call secondary sanctions. If the United States were to ramp up secondary sanctions, by that I mean sanctions on the countries, that's primarily India and China, who are buying Russian energy, this would make a huge difference to, it would speed the weakening of the Russian economy.
Let's cover also this intention of Trump for a quick ceasefire deal. Steve Witkoff, after the meeting with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, proposed Trump to support this Russia strategy to give up 4 Ukrainian regions to Russia, according to Reuters. What such plan would mean for global security if it is being implemented by Trump?
Well, I can't see Ukraine agreeing to surrender its territory, even if the territory is occupied by the Russians. So I think what one would be looking at, and I'm sort of giving you a practical outlook here, is a line of truce. I mean, so there's no technical end to the war, the conflict, but you have a division. And I think at the moment we have to face up to the reality that's probably the point at which the conflict may cease for a period of time. But of course, it is a situation which would be precarious for European security. And there would be significant concern. So I don't think any of the European powers are going to agree to the surrender or the loss of any territory. But as I said, you have a line of truce in between North and South Korea, for example, and that is the last truce line of the Cold War. Without an agreement, and it's possible to envisage some sort of situation which might correspond with that in Ukraine.
Also, let's cover current split in the White House. According to today's article in the Wall Street Journal, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and also retired U.S. General Kit Kellogg are trying to convince Trump to be more tough on Russia. However, on the other hand, we have Steve Witkoff, who is advising Trump to move forward with this quick deal. He's confident that Vladimir Putin will agree to full ceasefire. What is your assessment of the split in the White House and two groups of people who have really different opinions? Is there a chance that they would have one single united approach to this war?
Well, I think there is. I haven't seen any evidence myself, and I'm aware that there may be a difference of opinion. I've done a podcast with Rubio. This was a long time ago, and Rubio's expressed view is pretty clear cut on the importance of supporting and continuing to support Ukraine. And one of the points that Rubio made in discussion with me, and I've heard him make it with other people, is that, Trump does not want to have an Afghan-type disaster occurring at the beginning of his presidency, so that, you look at the impact that had on Biden's reputation as president. It was very, very damaging. So I am of the view that, there isn't yet a clear policy line, which is encouraging in a way, because it may mean that Trump's previously expressed view is being modified and changed. I think the other leader who met Trump and probably argued with him very logically and strongly about the danger of making concessions to Russia was when the Finnish Prime Minister Alex Stubb went to the States, and of course had the advantage, he's a very good golfer, playing golf with Trump.